The car was gone. That is what she noticed first. Not the news, not the press conference, not the FBI agents knocking on doors in her neighborhood. The car that had been in the driveway next door was simply not there anymore. She could not say exactly when it disappeared. Somewhere around the time it happened, she told a reporter. Sometime in that window. She called to report it. She said, "I thought it's probably nothing, but I wanted to let them know." That call placed in the first week of the investigation was one detail among thousands. Logged, received, filed with the others. Nobody announced publicly what came of it. Then, 6 weeks later, the FBI came back. Not back to the street in general, back to that house specifically. Asking the kind of questions that are not general. Asking about that property, about who had been inside it, about when the occupants left, about what, if anything, remained. And a retired SWAT commander from the same county, in a national magazine, used a very specific kind of language to describe what he believed that house might have been used for. Home base, staging location, a place from which someone watched, and waited, and timed every movement on that street before February 1st. This is what the investigation looks like right now, and it matters more than most coverage has said. 3 people understood this crime differently. Their versions do not align. The gaps between them are where the investigation is working. The first perspective is the neighbors. Aldine Meister has lived in the Catalina foothills for nearly 30 years. She knows the neighborhood the way you know a place you have watched from the same vantage point for 3 decades. She knows which cars belong. She knows which faces she recognizes, and which ones she does not. 2 to 3 weeks before Nancy Guthrie disappeared, Meister saw a man walking through the neighborhood who did not fit, hat pulled low, hunched. In street clothing, not the hiking gear or the jogging attire of people who belong in the Catalina foothills at that hour. She could not make out his face, but she remembered him. In the first days after Nancy's disappearance, she flagged the vacant property next door to investigators without being asked. She said, "I wanted them to check that house." The second perspective is the operational experts. Bob Krieger spent nearly 30 years as a SWAT commander with the Pima County Sheriff's Department. The same jurisdiction, the same physical terrain, the same residential geography where this crime occurred. He is not a commentator. He is not a theorist. He spoke to Parade magazine in March 2026 and used language drawn from decades of executing high-risk operations in environments exactly like the Catalina foothills. He described the vacant property as a possible home base, a staging location, a position from which someone could see the comings and goings of people, the timing of things, including Nancy. He described surveillance equipment that could be stashed inside a structure without anyone knowing. The third perspective is the investigators. Brian Enton, senior investigative reporter for News Nation, spent more than 40 consecutive days in Tucson covering this case. Through law enforcement adjacent sources, he reported in mid-March that FBI agents had returned to the neighborhood with specific pointed questions about that rental property. Name-by-name questions, not general inquiries. Who lived there? When did they leave? Who had access? 3 perspectives. A neighbor who saw something 6 weeks before investigators came back to ask. An operational expert who named a professional framework for what the property could have been. And an investigator who confirmed the FBI was actively pursuing it. None of them tells the complete story. Each one holds a different piece. Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old and lived alone in the Catalina foothills. She had severe back pain that made reaching the mailbox a challenge most days. She attended virtual church on Sunday mornings. She had dinner with family on Saturday evenings. She had planted roots in Tucson more than 50 years ago. She was the mother of Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show. On the evening of January 31st, her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, dropped her at home at 9:48 p.m. The garage door opened. At 9:50, it closed. She was inside, safe. That is the last confirmed ordinary moment. At 1:47 a.m. on February the 1st, her doorbell camera disconnected. At 2:12 a.m., a motion sensor detected a person at the front of the property. At 2:28 a.m., the app monitoring her pacemaker lost its connection to her phone. Her phone did not move. She did. Those 3 timestamps are the publicly known digital record of the night. But there are smaller details embedded in the weeks before that night that have not been fully assembled in public coverage. The Ring Neighbors app, the community safety network used throughout the Catalina foothills, received a specific alert in the early days of the investigation. Residents were asked to check their camera systems for footage from January 11th between 9 p.m. and midnight. That is not a general request for neighborhood footage. That is a specific date with a specific evening window. The alert also mentioned a suspicious vehicle spotted near Nancy Street at 10 a.m. on January 31st, the day of the abduction. 2 data points. 3 weeks before the abduction, an unidentified figure at or near the property on an evening in January. The afternoon before the abduction, an unidentified vehicle in the neighborhood. The Guthrie family's own public statement, released in coordination with the investigators working the case, asked the community to search their memories for January 11th specifically and for the late evening of that Sunday. Families do not include specific dates in coordinated public statements unless investigators have told them those dates carry significance. January 11th sits exactly 3 weeks before February 1st. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffendafer, in her public analysis of this case, described what she believes occurred on that date. She called it a trial run. Someone at Nancy's door not to act, but to observe, to time the neighborhood, to confirm what they needed to confirm before returning. Now add the detail that connects to the vacant house. If someone was conducting a trial run on January 11th, they needed a place to return to afterward, not a hotel in central Tucson, 40 minutes away. Something close. Something that gave them a reason to be in that specific neighborhood, without drawing the kind of attention that a stranger on foot would draw in an affluent residential area, where everyone belongs to a legible category. The car that was gone from the rental property next door is a small detail, one observation by one neighbor, but placed alongside Coffendafer's trial run assessment, alongside the January 11th date investigators asked specifically about, alongside Meister's description of a stranger who did not fit, it becomes part of a picture that the FBI has been working to complete for 11 weeks. Here is where the public record fractures in a way that is not a minor inconsistency. It is a direct contradiction between 2 credentialed investigative journalists describing the same event in opposite terms. Brian Enton, reporting through law enforcement adjacent sources with direct knowledge of the investigation, described the rental property as vacated before Nancy disappeared. His exact framing: there is one neighbor that moved out before Nancy disappeared, and the FBI has been asking more questions about that situation, before Nancy disappeared. Dave Mack, investigative reporter for Crime Stories with Nancy Grace, reported a completely different account. According to Mack, the renters of that property moved out immediately after the kidnapping. His framing: they were there until the kidnapping and then gone, immediately after. These are not 2 journalists offering different interpretations of the same ambiguous event. These are 2 directly contradictory accounts of a single factual question. When did the occupants of that property leave relative to February 1st? One says before, one says after. And each answer carries completely different investigative implications. If Entine's account is accurate and the property was vacated before the abduction, what we are looking at is a rental that went empty during the operational run-up to the crime. In the days or weeks before February 1st, the property was vacant. In Krieger's operational framework, that is not a coincidence. That is a resource. A staging location that has no occupant to report unusual activity. A property whose emptiness provides operational cover. If Mack's account is accurate and the occupants left immediately after the abduction, the question shifts entirely. People who depart a rental in the immediate aftermath of a high-profile kidnapping in their own neighborhood, without prior notice, without moving infrastructure, without the ordinary social signaling of a planned departure, are doing something that investigators cannot set aside without accounting for. The FBI is apparently treating both possibilities with the seriousness they deserve. Entine's language, they have been asking more questions about that situation, is not the language of a closed inquiry. It is the language of something that has not yet resolved. Now add the third-party account. A neighbor identified as Laura spoke to Enton directly on camera. She described observing the car was gone around the time of the disappearance. She could not determine with certainty whether the departure was before or after February 1st. She reasoned backward from the car's absence without being able to precisely date it. What she could say is that it struck her as unusual enough to make a phone call. A vehicle simply missing from a nearby rental with no moving truck, No goodbye, no announcement, registered as wrong in a neighborhood that knows every car. Her instinct to call was correct. The timeline she could not pinpoint is exactly what the FBI is now trying to establish. Now, let's go inside Krieger's operational framework, because the language he used with Parade is not casual language. It is the vocabulary of someone who has spent 3 decades building and executing operations in residential environments exactly like the Catalina foothills, and it deserves to be examined precisely. He told Parade that investigators could look at a location like the Vacant house as a possible home base or staging location for the suspect or suspects. Those are his words: home base, staging location. In operational terms, a staging location is where you pre-position, where you return between reconnaissance runs, where you exist in a way that raises no flags because you have a legitimate reason to be there. You are a renter. You live next door. Nobody thinks twice about your car in the driveway. He told Parade that staying in a nearby rental would give someone a cover story to be at those locations at different times. He made the distinction between a cover story and an alibi deliberately. An alibi explains where you were after something happens. A cover story justifies your presence in real time before anything has happened at all. It means someone can sit in a car outside a home at midnight, and if a neighbor glances over and wonders, there is a ready answer: I live next door. That is the end of the question. He then said something more operationally specific. He told Parade that someone operating from a nearby vacant property would be in a position to be more under the radar, to see the activity of the neighborhood, to observe the comings and goings of people, the timing of things, of all the people, including Nancy. That is a professional description of pre-operational surveillance conducted from a fixed position with legitimate cover, from approximately 50 feet, a conservative estimate for neighboring property distance in the Catalina foothills. What sustained observation over several weeks actually enables is specific and detailed. Sleep and wake patterns determined by bedroom light sequences, visitor patterns mapped across multiple evenings, garage door timing recorded precisely, camera positions identified, and their coverage angles assessed, the specific window of isolation when a resident is alone, predictably in a dark and quiet house, confirmed across repeated observations. That is not a rough impression of vulnerability. That is a documented operational picture. And building it required physical presence in proximity to the target location over an extended period. A staging location 50 feet away, with a legitimate cover story for that presence, provides exactly the infrastructure that picture requires. Go back to January, not February the 1st. January. Krieger's professional framework for the staging location theory rests on a specific operational concept. In a targeted abduction, the planning phase is not a single event. It is a process. It builds over time, and it requires physical infrastructure in proximity to the target. What does sustained observation of a residential property over several weeks actually enable? From approximately 50 feet, which is a conservative estimate for the distance between neighboring properties in the Catalina foothills, an observer can determine the following with high accuracy: the time the bedroom lights come on and go off, establishing sleep and wake patterns, when cars arrive and depart and whose cars they are, which entrance sees the most use and at what hours, which cameras face the street and which direction each one points, whether the resident has overnight visitors, or whether the pattern of isolation they observe is consistent across multiple evenings. That knowledge, built from 50 feet over several weeks, produces a picture that is not a guess. It is a documented understanding of a target's daily rhythms. The 4-hour window between 9:50 p.m. on January 31st and the camera disconnect at 1:47 a.m. On February 1st, the window in which Nancy was alone in a dark and quiet house with no visitors and no overnight company was not discovered on the night of the abduction. If Krieger's framework is accurate, it was known, confirmed across multiple observations, anticipated. The masked figure who appeared at the front entrance at 1:47 a.m. arrived with specific equipment. The FBI confirmed this: ski mask, gloves, holstered weapon, 25-liter Ozark Trail backpack sold exclusively at Walmart. The Bureau described him as male, approximately 5 feet 9 to 5 feet to 10, average build. Former Pima County Sheriff's Office investigator Rick Castigar noted that the suspect's approach to the camera reflected awareness of its position that does not come from a single visit. You learn where a specific camera is mounted, the exact angle it covers, by observing it from the outside over time. Now, apply Krieger's staging location framework to that preparation. If someone was operating out of a rental property nearby during the planning phase, they had sustained access to the sightlines that would tell them about the camera. They had the time to observe which nights Nancy was alone. They had a place to return to between reconnaissance visits where their presence was explainable. And they had the time, before February 1st, to arrange the departure of that property, so that on the night of the operation, no one would be next door to hear anything, see anything, or report anything. That is the framework. It is not confirmed. It is the professional assessment of a retired SWAT commander from the same county. But it is the framework the FBI appears to be taking seriously enough to return to the neighborhood and ask specific questions 6 weeks after the initial canvass. There is also the construction worker dimension. The FBI, on those return visits, was simultaneously asking residents for the individual names of every contractor and worker on every nearby construction project in January. Not company names, not general project information. Individual worker names per project per time frame. Why construction workers alongside the vacant house inquiry? The Catalina foothills resists casual strangers. Residents notice unfamiliar faces. They notice unfamiliar vehicles. They track what does not belong. The only categories of person who can be present repeatedly in an affluent residential neighborhood at varying hours without triggering that watchfulness are people with a visible, legitimate reason to be there. A renter of the house next door is one such person. A construction worker on a nearby job site is another. Both categories provide what Krieger's framework calls a cover story, not an alibi after the fact. A justification in real time, before anything has happened, for being on that street in ways that neighbors accept without question. The FBI asking for individual construction worker names on January job sites, in parallel with the vacant property inquiry, suggests they are building a complete roster of everyone with legitimate proximity to that street during the relevant window. They are looking for an overlap, someone whose documented presence as either a worker or a renter in the neighborhood during January connects to the behavioral and forensic evidence from the night of the abduction. Former FBI agent Steve Moore, commenting on the investigation's direction, offered a precise read on what this level of specific FBI inquiry means. He confirmed it means they are retracing steps, but he added the crucial clarification that retracing steps is not going backward. It means they are moving forward. Something produced a new piece of information worth cross-referencing against everything already known. Two parallel threads, the vacant rental and the construction worker names, being pursued simultaneously by federal agents in a neighborhood they had already thoroughly canvassed weeks earlier. Both threads represent the same underlying question. Who had legitimate cover to be near Nancy's home repeatedly in January? And did someone use that cover to build something that was not legitimate at all? The parade interview with Krieger added one more specific element worth examining. He told the publication that the FBI returning to that neighborhood after 6 weeks represented what he characterized as more follow-up. That new viable leads pop up all the time. That someone in the area could see or hear something, and it shakes loose a memory that they had just put away as nothing at the time. Something shook loose. That is the specific operational language for what drives a second pass through territory already covered. A new name, a new memory, a detail that was logged and set aside in week 1 that has now found its context in week 7. The FBI does not return to a canvassed neighborhood with specific property questions unless something they received after the first canvass pointed them back. The vacant house theory gains forensic dimension when you consider what a competent evidence response team would look for inside a property believed to have served as a staging location. Start with the biological. Every human being sheds cellular material continuously and involuntarily. Skin cells deposit on every surface a person contacts with any regularity. Hair transfers to upholstery, carpet, and floor surfaces. Saliva transfers to glass rims, door handles, any surface contacted near face height. In a residential property where someone spent time over several weeks, the concentration of what forensic scientists call touch DNA is not trace level. It is substantial. It accumulates in carpet fibers, in the grain of wood surfaces, in the backing of window treatments, on the edges of door frames. The critical advantage of a rental property over other crime scenes is the manageable pool of people with documented, legitimate reason to have been inside. The property management company knows who the tenants were. Prior occupants can be interviewed and their DNA obtained for exclusion comparisons. When those exclusions are complete, what remains is genetic material from someone with no documented reason to have been in that property. And here is where the cross-scene DNA concept becomes forensically significant. The Pima County Sheriff's Office confirmed publicly that mixed DNA of unknown male origin was recovered from inside Nancy's home. Sheriff Nanos said on record that investigators believe it may belong to their suspect. The sample presents analytical challenges because it contains genetic material from more than one contributor, which requires specialized laboratory processing to separate into individual profiles. DNA Labs International in Deerfield Beach, Florida, received the sample on a rush basis and has been deploying analytical technology not originally scheduled for public use until later in 2026. C.C. Moore, chief forensic genealogist at Parabon Nanolabs, stated publicly that the person who left that DNA will be identified. She did not say might be. She said will be. If the vacant property also yields biological material from the same unknown profile, the forensic architecture of the case transforms. 2 separate locations, 2 independent chains of custody, 2 forensic collection processes with no shared personnel or processing, the same genetic profile at both. That combination presents a specific evidentiary challenge that is not easily answered by coincidence or by innocent explanation. Genetic material inside an abducted woman's home, the same genetic material in the vacant rental next door. No documented reason to have been in either location. Beyond biological material, there is the physical residue of sustained occupation. Furniture moved to optimize a sightline toward a neighboring property. Leaves compression marks in carpet that persist for weeks. Scuff marks at windowsills where someone stood repeatedly for extended observation are recoverable. If surveillance equipment was installed and then removed, the installation itself leaves traces. Mounting hardware holes in walls or window frames. Adhesive residue with a chemically identifiable signature. Cable routing paths along baseboards. And if removable storage media was used, micro SD cards small enough to be overlooked in the urgency of a rapid departure, those items could contain weeks of recorded footage that has nothing to do with the departing tenant's normal life and everything to do with the house across the street. C.C. Moore raised a specific mechanism through which the suspect may have transferred DNA inside Nancy's home without knowing it. The bite light visible in the doorbell footage. A flashlight held in the mouth to free both hands while working at the camera. It comes out of the mouth at some point during 41 minutes inside the property. When it comes out, saliva transfers to the gloves. When the gloves contact any surface inside the house, any door, any wall, any object, DNA follows that transfer. That same mechanism would have operated in the staging location. If someone spent multiple evenings in the vacant property, eating, drinking, breathing, moving through the rooms, the biological record of that presence did not leave with them. It remained in the surfaces. It waited. The FBI's evidence response capabilities are not limited to what is visible to the naked eye. Their teams use chemical reagents that reveal biological material cleaned to visual absence. They use alternate light sources that reveal contact impressions on surfaces that appear undisturbed. Whether they have applied those capabilities to the vacant property and what they found if they did is information they have chosen not to share publicly. That choice is itself a data point. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffendafer assessed the investigation's current status in late March 2026 with a specific formulation. She said, "Just because we don't see what the FBI is investigating, I assure you, they are drinking from a fire hose with more investigative leads than most cases ever have. Red hot behind the scenes. Every investigative category active simultaneously. The vacant house is one thread in a fire hose of threads, but it is the thread that a retired Pima County SWAT commander chose to describe in operational detail to a national magazine. And it is the thread the FBI chose to pursue specifically, by name, 6 weeks into an investigation where they had already knocked on every door in the neighborhood once. There is a detail in Krieger's parade interview that most coverage noted and then moved past. It is the most significant thing any credentialed expert has said publicly about this investigation since the FBI released the doorbell camera footage in February. He told Parade that a vacant property out of the prying eye of the neighborhood could also be a location to set up surveillance equipment if anyone chose to do so, and that such equipment could be easily stashed in a structure or on the property without anyone knowing. Read that again, slowly. Krieger is not describing someone standing at a window with binoculars. He is describing a physical installation, a camera, a monitoring device, something capable of recording activity at Nancy's home for an extended period, potentially weeks, without requiring any human presence at the vacant property during the recording period. A remote feed, something accessible from anywhere, returning footage to whoever installed it while the property sat empty and undisturbed next door. The implications of that possibility are significant for reasons beyond the obvious surveillance dimension. If surveillance equipment was installed in or near the vacant property, then the planning of this operation did not require the person doing the planning to be physically present in the neighborhood every time they needed information about Nancy's movements. They could observe remotely. They could confirm the pattern from a distance. They could know, with whatever level of certainty the equipment's field of view provided, that on the night of January 31st going into February the 1st, the conditions were exactly what the plan required. That is a qualitatively different level of operational preparation from standing at a window on specific evenings. It is systematic, continuous, passive intelligence collection from a fixed position requiring no repeated physical presence that could be logged by a neighbor's security system or noted by a passing resident. Aldine Meister saw a strange man in the neighborhood 2 to 3 weeks before the abduction. If surveillance equipment was already installed at that point, the question of what he was doing during that specific walk changes. He was not necessarily collecting intelligence. He may have been checking on equipment or simply moving through the area for reasons unrelated to direct observation, while the passive collection continued on its own. And the fact that the car was gone from the rental property on whatever precise date it disappeared takes on a different meaning if the equipment could continue operating after the human occupant departed. An empty house with a device still running, a feed still transmitting to wherever the operator was watching from, a property that looked vacant to every neighbor who walked past while continuing to function as an observation post. None of that is confirmed. Krieger described it as a possibility in the professional framework of someone who has built and executed operations. The FBI has not confirmed or denied that any such equipment was found or sought, but the detail that Meister saw a man who did not fit, that the car disappeared in the relevant time frame, that the FBI returned 6 weeks in with specific property questions, and that a retired SWAT commander from the same county publicly described surveillance equipment as a plausible element of the staging location framework. Those details connect in a way that is not comfortable to leave unexamined. Here is what the available record confirms with certainty. Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, was taken from her home in the Catalina foothills on the night of January 31st into February the 1st, 2026. Her blood was confirmed on the front porch. Her doorbell camera disconnected at 1:47 a.m. The FBI recovered footage from that camera's back-end servers, showing a masked, armed, gloved suspect. The suspect is described as male, approximately 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10. Mixed male DNA of unknown origin was recovered from inside her home. Sheriff Nanos confirmed publicly that investigators believe the abduction was targeted. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffendafer publicly assessed the suspect's possible prior visit as a trial run. The Guthrie family publicly asked the community to search their memories for January 11th. The FBI returned to the neighborhood 6 weeks in with specific questions about a vacant rental property near Nancy's home, reported by Brian Enton through law enforcement adjacent sources. Bob Krieger, retired Pima County SWAT commander, described that property in operational terms as a possible home base and staging location, including the possibility of surveillance equipment installed without neighbors knowing. 2 neighbors, Aldine Meister and Laura, independently flagged the property as anomalous before or early in the investigation. Meister flagged it in week 1 and reported seeing a stranger in the neighborhood 2 to 3 weeks before the abduction. Here is what is reported and credible but not confirmed by official sources. Whether the FBI forensically processed the interior of the vacant property and what they found, if they did, whether the timeline of the occupant's departure was before or after February 1st, and the specific significance of that timing, whether surveillance equipment was installed, operated, or removed from the property, whether the construction worker investigation produced any connection to the property or to the suspect, whether either of the two individuals whose phones were seized in mid-February raids has any connection to the vacant property. The FBI's non-response to direct inquiries about the property is consistent with standard protocol for active investigative evidence. It is not confirmation of anything. It is also not a denial. Here is what cannot be determined from publicly available information. Whether the staging location theory will prove correct, whether any physical or biological evidence from the vacant property connects to evidence from inside Nancy's home, whether the investigation is weeks away from a named suspect or months away. What can be said is this: the pattern of investigative activity, the return after 6 weeks, the specific property focus, the construction worker canvas, the credentialed expert who named a professional framework for what that property could have been, is not the pattern of an investigation running out of direction. It is the pattern of an investigation that has developed a new line of inquiry and is following it with the specific granularity that forensic work requires. There is a question embedded in the structure of this entire investigation that goes beyond the vacant house or the surveillance equipment or the construction worker names. The question is about the relationship between proximity and invisibility. In a neighborhood like the Catalina foothills, strangers stand out. The community is tight-knit, familiar, socially legible. People notice what does not fit. Aldine Meister noticed. Laura noticed the car was gone. The neighbor who called investigators noticed. The community was watching. And yet, if the staging location theory is accurate, someone existed within that community's observable radius for 3 weeks before the abduction without being identified. Not because they were invisible, they were not. Meister saw the man with the hat pulled low. The Ring Neighbors app circulated alerts about suspicious vehicles. The community's surveillance was present and active. But presence in a surveillance environment and identification from that surveillance are two different things. Meister saw someone. She did not know his name. The traffic camera recorded a vehicle 6 times across 3 weeks. If those recordings contain a license plate, they contain a potential name. But the license plate requires processing, cross-referencing, the specific technical work that turns a visual record into an identification. The FBI possesses all of that footage. They possess the seized phone GPS records that could cross-reference it. They possess the construction worker names that can be checked against the visual record. They possess the forensic processing of whatever evidence was collected from the vacant property, if that processing was done. They possess everything that the community observed but could not itself connect. And that is the specific function of the investigative apparatus in a case like this. The community was the distributed sensor network. The FBI is the analytical layer that turns distributed observation into a name. The question this case leaves open is not whether that analytical process is working. It is whether it is working fast enough. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old, dependent on daily cardiac medication, taken without her shoes or her medicine in the early hours of a February morning. The community noticed. The FBI is working through what the community collected. The distance between those two things is measured in time, and every day that passes is a day that distance extends. If you were in the Catalina foothills or anywhere near it between January 11th and February 1st, 2026, and you saw something you have not yet reported, the FBI tip line is 1-800-CALL-FBI. Tips can also be submitted at tipsfbi.gov. Every detail reviewed, every name processed. The investigation is active. Tell me in the comments. Does the staging location theory change how you understand the 3 weeks before the abduction? And if surveillance equipment was installed in or near that vacant property, what does its potential continued operation after the occupant's departure mean for what the FBI might have recovered? Subscribe to the Investigation Room and turn on notifications. When the investigation produces a public answer, the questions being asked about that property right now will be part of how it happened. This investigation was presented with respect for Nancy Guthrie and her family. Our goal is to examine the evidence and search for truth. The car was gone, the house was empty, and the FBI is still trying to account for every minute of what happened inside it. 6 weeks of investigation did not close the question of that property. They opened it. and what they are looking for in the space between a neighbor's observation and a SWAT commander's professional framework.